Welcome to Jobline, Long Island's only program devoted to career opportunities and workplace issues. I'm Scott Possessor. Many people in the workplace avoid the spotlight, allow others to overshadow their accomplishments, have trouble standing up to authority, talk about coworkers behind their backs, procrastinate, and in general display a series of behaviors that help them, keep them, I should say, from achieving success. This is troubling behavior to be sure, but even worse is many of the people that do this don't know why they're doing it or how to stop doing it. Now, according to our special guest today, noted author Susan Anderson, you may be guilty of what's called self-sabotage. While you may have been exhibiting these behaviors for years, the good news is there is a cure for self-sabotage that could very well get you back on the path to achieving your goals. Susan Anderson is a psychotherapist and the author of 4 books on self-sabotage and abandonment, which explore the causes and damaging effects self-sabotage can have on your personal and professional life. Susan's most recent book, Taming Your Outer Child, explains how the outer child we all have sabotages us and offers practical advice on how you can eliminate this problem. Susan, welcome to Jobline.
It's good to be here, Scott.
22 years on the air, we never touched this subject. And actually what we're all about here on Jobline is being successful. So if there's some lurking thing out there that's going to keep you from being successful, we have an obligation to talk about it. And I was glad to read your book. In fact, I enjoyed your books. I read 3 of them very much, which is how you got on. And let's talk about self-sabotage. What is it and why do people do it?
Self-sabotage is the need to succumb to immediate gratifications where you take the easy road out. So in the workplace, you might procrastinate instead of pushing yourself forward, or you get pleasure from talking about someone behind his back, or you just avoid things that are uncomfortable. It's a place that you kick up a lot of feelings and you act them out inappropriately.
But let's talk about why, because I think the why is every bit as important. I mean, why would someone, I guess they don't know they're doing it, but why are they doing it?
Yes, the root of self-sabotage is all about unresolved abandonment. Mm-hmm. When you have a lot of feelings bubbling up, which they will in the workplace especially, because it's the pecking order. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of feelings of vulnerability and self-doubt come up, and when you have these issues and you're not in touch with the feelings and you don't know what to do with them, you act them out in patterns. And they're patterns that you might have developed when you were very young.
Mm-hmm. So tell me more. Now give me an example.
Well, for instance, you might have a feeling of anxiety. For instance, you might have performance anxiety, and it's a feeling that feels crippling, and you don't know how to deal with this feeling, and you're angry that you even have it. You're mad at yourself that you have so much anxiety whenever you try to showcase your skills. And you actually, if you don't know where the feeling is coming from and how to grip it and flip it and make it work for you, that feeling will cause you to avoid many opportunities in the workplace. You might avoid speaking at a meeting when you need to speak.
And this comes from something that happened to this person earlier in their life or even more recently?
Well, we all have abandonment fear. We all have it. We were born into a situation where we needed our parents to survive, and when they ran away or went away from the crib, we were panicked. We all have it. And as we go through life, we have all these feelings of self-doubt and vulnerability. Plus, when we get annoyed with ourselves for having feelings, uncomfortable feelings, we self-abandon. And when we self-abandon, we don't love ourselves enough to give ourselves what we really need. Instead, we succumb to these immediate gratifications, doing the easy thing, procrastinating or eating a second piece of cake or not applying for the new job.
Now, the guy that talks behind people's back probably knows it's the wrong thing to do. But is it possible that he can't stop himself because he's acting something out?
Well, what's going on there is that, the harbinger of self-sabotage is what I call the outer child. Mm-hmm. And it means that his outer child is in control because he knows it's not in his best interest to do that. It's a cheap thrill to talk about someone behind his back. Mm-hmm. It's just, you get an immediate gratification from that, and his outer child is in control. If his adult self is in control, the higher self, he would not use that behavior because he knows it undermines people's trust in him.
So you're a psychotherapist. I mean, are there people that are in denial that you say, okay, well, this is the issue, and they say, no, I'm not. No, it's not.
Yes, we're all in denial about our self-sabotage. The outer child, the part of us that breaks our diet and stalls our career and is attracted to all the wrong people, that's the outer child, doesn't want to give up control. Outer child wants its immediate gratifications, and it will fight the adult self, tooth and nail, to give up control because it wants to get what it wants. So it goes underground, and it does very subtle things to try and resist our efforts, the adult efforts, to push our careers forward and our lives forward.
All right, well, I'm looking forward to the next segment. We're going to talk about how to eliminate this. Okay, we have to take a break. Up next, some tips on how to eliminate self-sabotage. Jobline, we'll be right back. Welcome back to Jobline on News 12 Long Island. We're continuing our discussion on avoiding habits that hurt our performance and our standing in the workplace. Joining me once again is author Susan Anderson. Susan, I'm very disturbed that we all have this outer child that we're fighting, and that many of us probably are watching the show and realizing, oh my goodness, maybe this is me. This is why I'm doing these things. Yes. So let's talk about how we can eliminate self-sabotage. I know it's not easy, but you did put together a few points for us that I think we should start with. And the first one is set goals. Like you want that promotion, you want to retire, you want the raise.
In order to overcome self-sabotage, you have to have a sense of future. And some people don't really have a strong sense of future. They have too much doubt about the future, and they're worried about what will happen. They need a positive sense of future, and they need goals for that. They need to be able to visualize the goals that they have, and they need to be able to imagine themselves meeting those goals, and they have to keep those goals first and forefront on the screen of their mind. Put it on the dashboard or on the bulletin board, on your refrigerator, anything to keep them in focus.
And this is an outer child fighter. In other words, by having this goal,
yes,
they're able to focus more on
it's
that.
It's the adult self having the goal,
okay,
and the outer child's going to fight you.
Okay, cool. All right, well, not cool. Create daily action plan.
Yes. The adult self, again, creates the action plan, and it's a realistic plan of what you have to do in the here and now today. At work, you know what your responsibilities are. What will make you feel good about yourself at the end of the day? Make that action plan and include 1 or 2 steps that will also push toward your ultimate goals, even if they're small steps, so that you have a sense that you're moving in the right direction.
Okay. Now here's a part that might get a little complicated, but let's talk about it. Take note of feelings that interfere with your action plan.
So you have an action plan, but you find that there's resistance. You're resisting following all of the steps on your action plan. And that's because your outer child doesn't want you to do all these things. It wants its pleasure. It wants to go to the coffee clutch. It wants to fraternize. It wants to relax, procrastinate, avoid. It wants to do all these things that are not in your best interest. And when you experience that resistance, you need to tune in. What are you feeling? What's in your self-love quotient that isn't working for you? What doubts, vulnerabilities, worries are you having?
And then here's a good one. Don't squelch the feelings, but don't act them out.
Exactly. So what we usually do is we get mad at the feelings and we deny them or ignore them or squelch them, or we try to, and then outer child acts them out inappropriately. Because if we don't deal with our feelings, they get acted out against us. The outer child gets power from those feelings. That's outer child fuel, or the unacknowledged feelings that we have during the day.
Let's see if we could just come up with an example of this. You know, of any of the problems that people might experience as a result of self-sabotage, and how they might be manifested in a visual and obvious way.
Let's say you're an employer, and you know that the best way to get your people to do what you need them to do is to be very firm and clear with your directives. But your default mode, the easiest thing for you to do, is try to get everybody to like you more, because you think somehow that will get them to do what you need them to do. Your adult self knows better. That is just people pleasing. It doesn't work. But your outer child wants that. That's the easiest thing for your outer child to do. It's the most pleasurable. So you make an action plan, but that day you go to work, and once again you're fraternizing and being friendly and helpful, but not being clear and directive. What was the interference? Is it because you have a great need for approval and recognition? Are you afraid of rejection and anger? It may be. There's nothing wrong with the feeling, but you don't want to act it out by people pleasing.
Yeah, and I can see how this could clearly cross over into one's personal life, and probably even more so than in the workplace. Okay, we have one more. Become emotionally self-reliant. What does that mean?
Yes, so instead of squelching the feeling, you need to administer to your own feelings so that you're not looking to your boss or your coworkers or your lovers to make you feel better about yourself. You do that for yourself, and there are exercises, tools that help you do that. You grab that abandonment by the tail and you flip it and make it work for you, and there are tools that actually help you do that. It's a doing program. And when you can make yourself feel good and not look to other people, you get your power back. You take back your power and you become emotionally self-reliant and self-contained and self-possessed and capable of following your goals.
All right. Up next, some final thoughts from today's guest on Jobline and News 12 Long Island returns. Welcome back to Jobline and News 12 Long Island. We're talking about self-sabotage and how to eliminate it with Susan Anderson. Susan, great job so far. We all want to eliminate this. You know, I don't see why anybody wouldn't want to eliminate it. Give me an example, if you would, of how a person who, say, procrastinates could stop procrastinating.
You know, to overcome your outer child patterns, to overcome self-sabotage, you don't just think your way out of it. It's a doing kind of program. Mm-hmm. These are deeply entrenched patterns. You've had them since childhood, since the terrible twos. Your adult self is relatively new. Mm-hmm. You develop that maybe at 16 or 17, and it's still developing. You need to strengthen the muscle of your adult self in order to deal directly with your feelings. So with procrastination, if a person loves themselves only enough to do what's easy in the moment, they will not take care of something. They will put it off. They love themselves only enough to take a break, put it off till tomorrow, but not enough to do it and actually get forward. So when they get in touch with that feeling that they're not even important enough to themselves, that they just don't love themselves enough, now they know what they have to do. They have to work on that relationship with themselves. And you don't just do that by osmosis. You do it by doing. There's a doing program. It involves exercises, which are physical therapy for the brain, because you don't tomorrow suddenly get a new job and a new career and a new love life. You work toward it incrementally, and every action that you take that is self-loving, and you take baby steps to make them doable, you actually reprogram your brain, and you retrain yourself to develop healthy new habits.
One of the habits I read about in your book too is you can actually write to your inner child and outer child, and they can write to each other and speak to each other, communicate with each other, which I thought was very interesting.
Exactly. You can have your adult self speak to your feeling self, your inner child. Mm-hmm. And in speaking to your inner child, to the feelings, you're leaving your outer child out of the loop. And when you can do that, you leave other people out of the loop of when you look to other people, let's say you look to your boss to give you approval, but when you can do that for yourself, you can relax more when you're with your boss.
This has been extremely fascinating, I think, for people that have issues but don't know why. I think it's especially useful to them. What advice would you give to people who are struggling with this, Susan?
Get to know your outer child. It's up to nonsense that you don't even know about. Gain awareness about what your self-sabotage is all about, and commit to yourself. Commit to an improvement program.
Okay, excellent. I want to thank my guests and you at home for watching Jobline. Until next time, I'm Scott Possessor. Happy hunting.